Good evening. I am Danette Batiste, and I am the CEO and co-founder of Healthy Heart Nation. And so we are so grateful that you are all here. Healthy Heart Nation is an organization that began in 2019, and it is founded, our mission is really to focus on the social determinants of health. And that is really defined by where we eat, work, play, and study. Right? And so the organization is focused in 4 areas. In most instances, when people hear Healthy Heart Nation, they just think about health, which is a huge component of what we do. But we have really understood and fully feel that our value lies in our ability to look at not just health, but look at business, look at justice, look at education. And so when we take those 4 legs, which we consider our pillars, and we put health on top of it, the table gets to stand a lot stronger. And so that is why we are focused on all 4 areas as we look to deliver health into our communities. Similar to what was talked about earlier today is if your mind's not right, if your finances aren't right, if your access to education aren't right, all of these things and basically negatively or positively impact your health. And so we want to bring together community, partners, all of these things to ensure that our community is stronger in all 4 of those areas. And so as a lot of you know us by our blood pressure measurements, and we are doing those in churches and barbershops. We are currently delivering this service through about 25 locations nationwide. And so we've gathered over 3,500 measurements. As we mentioned earlier today, we've taken 320 of those measurements at Kansas, and we have also done a lot of numbers at local barbershops within the Inland Empire. And so that is who we are. And we have had the opportunity, by taking blood pressure measurements, to learn a little bit about who you all are. And as it relates to those numbers. And we can be honest when we say that some of the numbers that we have seen on a consistent basis, because we are taking those numbers on a monthly basis, are concerning. And so we felt that it was necessary to, 1, provide you with a level of awareness in terms of what is good blood pressure, right? What are those numbers that you should be thriving for? But not just the what. We want to talk to you about the how. And so that is a little bit about what we're going to do today. And so I'm going to have my panel introduce themselves, and we'll start right here to this young man on my right.
All right, so I always like to kind of say it's much easier putting stents inside your artery than turning on the mic at times here. But I'm Columbus Batiste, as many of you know, and this is my home church since 1994. 94, time goes by. So this is up close and personal to me, this idea of health in our community. And for myself, over the past 2 weeks, I was wondering why I was a little off kilter the past couple of weeks. And all of a sudden it resonated with me that this is it marks the 15th anniversary of my dad passing on August 12th. And that was really my inflection point in my career in terms of recognizing the importance of everything else besides what I do as a standard. So in terms of pills and procedures, which are very important in the right context, but also what is the missing factor. And that was a part of the nidus that really led to my involvement in this realm of health and wellness that then branched into Healthy Heart Nation. But it's a pleasure to be here. I'm more honored that you all are here and that you're giving us your time and your attention too as well.
Good afternoon, church. I'm Ramona Snipes. I'm an emergency physician at one of our local area emergency departments. When I was a medical student at Loma Linda University, I was here for church on a regular basis. All right. And so I'm very comfortable. It feels like a return home to be here at Kansas Avenue. And so planning on spending some time with you here today. Very grateful. I've known these folks to my left for quite a long time. Columbus was actually my biology lab instructor. And so my love of healthcare and healthcare science, I've had the opportunity to know both of these folks for quite some time. I've known you for almost 20 years as well. So this is a group of people who know each other, who are part of this community, interested in the health of this community. So grateful to be here this afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon. Good afternoon, my name is Ken Stewart. Sorry, good afternoon, my name again is Ken Stewart, and I actually am a neighbor. I go to Rubidoux, but I've been here for the past, oh, mercy. I've been in Loma Linda for the past 24 years. I received my doctorate in public health at Loma Linda, and my area of focus is preventive care. So in preventive care, we focus on addressing chronic diseases, trying to figure out what are some of the connections, what are some contributing factors, but then also find ways to provide individuals with support and programs that help them reduce their risk and help them maintain and follow a healthy lifestyle. So I'm here, I'm thankful to be here, and I look forward to talking.
All right. If we have anyone who needs a translator, please let us know. We do have Spanish translators here. All right, we're good. Okay. So we'll start with some questions and some information that we feel is important, but please understand that this is interactive. So we're going to come to you, and we want you to ask us what your questions are and the information that you need. There are no bad questions, so we want to hear everything that you have going on in your mind within a time limit, okay? So first of all, Columbus, how would you define hypertension? And it's also kind of known as a silent killer.
Yeah, so I'll try and keep it short as it relates to what high blood pressure is, also known, aka hypertension. So I love analogies and quick equations. So hypertension is essentially, I'm going to start from a medical perspective and the physiology. So when we're looking at the heart's basically a magical pump. And I know that there's someone out here, at least I heard, wants to be an engineer of some sort and putting things together. So when we look at that, how things get put together, the heart's a pump. It squeezes, and it squeezes against the door. So imagine that back door there, and the force of pressure to exit that door is like what the heart's pumping against every single time. Now, if there's a heavy wind on the opposite side, that's keeping that door resisted, right? There's resistance that keeps you from pushing the door open. That's essentially, we're measuring what that degree of pressure is. Now, from a physiologic perspective, we characterize that as something we call cardiac output, which is your heart rate times the amount of blood that's squeezed out per second that's there. And we look at that cardiac output, heart rate times stroke volume, and then we look at how much resistance is there. Now, that's all complicated, so the easy way to think of it is that your blood pressure equals your stress divided by your resiliency. So the more stress or the tighter your blood vessels are, the higher your blood pressure is going to be. The higher the volume inside your system, potentially higher your blood pressure is going to be. And your body is beautifully and wonderfully made. And there's a number of different mechanisms that go into place that can cause it to elevate. And so we measure that with the blood pressure cuff, and we're looking at certain numbers that are predictors of risk. And our goal is to lower your risk. That's all our goal is, lower your risk as a whole.
Great, thank you. And so, Ramona, as it relates to pregnancy outcomes, what is the impact of hypertension on a woman who is pregnant?
This one's still not working. All right. Thank you for that. That's a great question. I'm sure, I know there are several OBGYNs at this church, so they'll be able to course correct me when I'm wrong. But at the same time, pregnancy impacts, I'm seeing I'm still not loud enough. Pregnancy impacts the heart of the pregnant person in advance, and so makes it less able to handle the stressors of pregnancy And so managing your blood pressure even before you become pregnant is a really important thing to protect your health while you're pregnant. In addition to that, uncontrolled blood pressure during the pregnancy can impact the uterus, the body of the pregnancy, which is the placental body, and it can impact the unborn. And so the emergencies I typically see for hypertension cover a spectrum. One of the things I worry about a lot is pregnancy with bleeding. In the first trimester of bleeding, we worry a little less. Although it is at risk to the pregnancy, it's not typically a risk to both. But second trimester and third trimester, we tend to see the shearing off of the placental body from the uterus with bleeding internally. That is very, very dangerous. We see a spectrum of pregnancy-induced hypertension, which is also a danger to both, which can present with some things as severe as seizures, strokes, comas, kidney damage. There are a number of other things, and hemolysis, which is uncontrolled bleeding. So I'm always on the lookout for hypertension in pregnancy, but I'm equally on the lookout for hypertension before pregnancy. A lot of people only watch it when they are becoming pregnant. We think it's really important. The healthcare community believes it's important for you to manage your blood pressure in advance of becoming pregnant. The entire time, your entire life, it's important to manage hypertension.
Thank you so much. Okay, so Ken, when you're looking at hypertension and the various stages of hypertension, from a wellness standpoint, what numbers are you most concerned with? Those that are in the normal, the elevated, stage 1, 2, or hypertensive crisis? Which ones are more serious?
Well, really and truly, yes, if you're normal, that's good, but after that, it's a concern. Because the reason is because, number one, if you're elevated, that's a cause for concern because there is something wrong there. What can we do to, not course correct, but find ways to bring down your numbers? Now, if you're if you're stage 1, then that's a cause for concern. Are you talking to your primary care? What meds are you on? But then we still want to focus on how can we find some ways to help reduce your risk or help reduce your numbers. So elevated is a concern, stage 1 is a concern. And every stage 2, then you should be talking to your primary care or even going to the ER because that's a big concern.
Hey guys, can you define hypertension class 1 and class 2, please?
Yes.
You want to go ahead?
So in terms of normal, that's below 120, over below 80. So, elevated is 120 to 129, 80 to 89. Stage 1 is 130 to 1. Is greater. I'm sorry. So stage 1 is 130 to 139, over 80 to 89. Stage 2 is 140 or higher, or 90 or higher, and then hypertensive crisis is 180, and or 180 or higher, and or 120 or higher.
That's great. And, so putting that into perspective, I want you to imagine it like this. So there's a lot of nice cars out there in that parking lot. A lot of nice cars. And you're trying to protect that car. So if you're going to roll the window up on one of the windows and you leave the rest down, you haven't really protected your car. If you have an alarm on there, but you leave the keys in there, you're not quite doing what you need to do. So we're trying to increase and lower the risk as much as possible. What is the risk of? And I think this is important. It's probably a question, so I'm probably dovetailing that there. What's important? So why the low numbers that everyone ignores are so important? Here's the reason why. Studies have shown that inside of the ages of 40 to around 60, you are going to be more predictive of having heart failure and stroke when your numbers are in the 130 range. So when you say that a little bit adds up to a whole lot, think of it like a relationship. If I'm irritating my wife constantly, day in and day out, I'm saying things that she doesn't like, I'm poking the bear, that's going to lead to a problem sooner or later that's going to erupt. Those little things add up to an awful lot, and that's what little bits of high blood pressure, what it does and the impact. So when we ignore it, that's like ignoring your car out there and saying, I hope everything's going to be okay. So the numbers that Dr. Stewart kind of outlined in that 130 to 139, the 80 to 89, the greater than 140 over greater than 90 for stage 1 and stage 2, Those are significant that have to be addressed. And there were recently guidelines that just came out yesterday, hot press, from American College of Cardiology, American Heart Association, that came off the press talking about this very thing. And they're saying that we need to do more of this. It's what came off the presses yesterday.
Okay, so Dr. Snipes, I keep calling you. Okay, Dr. Snipes, when you receive a patient in the emergency room in hypertension crisis, what are some of the things that you are looking at, and what are the things that you're sharing with them that they need to do after?
Certainly. And I want to start by saying every day in the emergency department when I'm working, I see people who are impacted. They're showing up in the emergency department as the result of decompensated lifestyle illness. That's what I spend the majority of my time doing. There's not a ton of that exciting stuff you see on television. I keep hearing about this show, The Pit. It's not like The Pit. I see a lot of people who, what I refer to, are dying slowly, coming to the emergency department, acutely dying, and we intervene. And so the vast majority of us emergency personnel would be out of work if people took care of their health. And I'm looking forward to the day I can work a little bit less. And so when I see someone come to the emergency department for hypertension, I start to think of a few things. First, I think about hypertension asymptomatic. Their blood pressure is elevated. They noticed it, and so they came in, very conscientious people. And so they came in, they want their blood pressure controlled. And typically, if their blood pressure is not terribly elevated in the emergency department, I actually send them home and tell them, this is the medication adjustment we're gonna do. I want your blood pressure rechecked by your primary care doctor in 2 days. And we need to bring it down over time. For those who did not know that their blood pressure was elevated, also conscientious, but hadn't been conscientious perhaps in the month before, I tell them, you've probably been living here for a while. If I bring your blood pressure down too quickly, your brain won't be used to it, and you'll probably feel very, very faint. I'm gonna bring it down by 20% here in the emergency department, and we're gonna bring it down about 20% every week. And you and your doctor are going to be walking arm in arm as you bring your blood pressure down to something normal. I advise you to take your medication. And I will say this, because I noticed this. The more melanated you are, this is a generalization, a stereotype, the less likely you are to take your blood pressure medication. It's just a stereotype. Because folks are looking for something natural. You may not trust the healthcare community and what the healthcare community historically has done with and for our community. But the more melanated you are, the deeper my voice gets. And I tell you, please take your blood pressure medication. You and your primary care doctor are going to be walking arm in arm over the next month as we bring your blood pressure down. You are not going to feel great, but you are going to feel better in 3 months than you do today.
Now, I'm gonna interrupt Dr. Snipes here for a second. As a cardiologist, I'm gonna push back.
Okay, please do.
I'm gonna push back. I disagree respectfully.
Say why.
That's not a generalization. There's data to back up the fact that African Americans, we're aware that we have high blood pressure. We're actually on treatment for high blood pressure, but we have the most horrible control. What does that spell to me? A couple of things. Either one, we're picking up the meds and we're not taking it. Number two, we're prescribed the meds and we're not picking them up. Number three, we're impacted by implicit bias and we're taking the meds, but we're not appropriately adjusted to bring us down to the level that we need to ideally. And the data is pretty robust across the board. We actually are treated better than other ethnic racial groups, but our control is the worst amongst everyone. The most recent data tells us 57% of African Americans do not have their blood pressure controlled. We're at risk.
Go for it. Can we talk about environment, was the question.
Absolutely. What question do you have first?
What is the impact? You just named those,
Statistics.
the data that says our inability to control, you gave those three things. Would you say something about someone taking medication and yet, back to the social determinants of health, the environment that you're living in, how does it impact whether or not you're being adherent?
Yeah, so One, I'll tell you this. The environment plays a significant role in I believe, in terms of why is there a difference in the blood pressure. It's not genetic, the reason why there's a difference in the occurrence of hypertension in African Americans. So there's a question. So a lot of folks out there believe that there is a genetic predisposition towards hypertension in certain ethnic groups. Well, there was actually a study published inside of Journal of American Heart Association, JAHA. And what they showed in that particular instance was the fact that if you looked at the rates of hypertension in West Africa, then you moved over to the Caribbean, then you moved over to the United States, that there was actually this upward trend of hypertension. That would not pretend a genetic predisposition. That would tell us that there is something else that's unique that's happening inside the environment. So what is an area of concern is the fact that what the president just released here recently, this past week, is the fact that there will no longer be an investment in exploring disparities, that disparities don't matter in terms of health outcomes. So there would be no more funding that goes that way from that perspective, which means that trying to explore treatment strategies that can help those that are at greatest risk is no longer going to be funded. That's an area of concern. So yes, we know stress plays a role. That impacts all of us. We know that implicit bias, a form of stress, discrimination can. We know that our food environment can too as well, food swamps, food deserts. We also know that the impact of all these things. What we want to focus on, though, is how can we tap into the resilience? How can we tap into the resiliency and flip the script from talking about all the stressors and all the bad things to at least addressing what can we deal with? What can we do from our perspective?
I think that's a great segue back to Ken, because from a health and a wellness and a lifestyle standpoint, what are some of the things that people can do that can improve their outcomes as it relates to their blood pressure? As they are also, if they're prescribed for medication, they should not be, done separately. They should be done together. So what are the things that you're telling your patients as it relates to lifestyle to really make a difference in their hypertension?
So it goes back to our health message that we have been taught for the past number of years as it relates to what you're eating daily. What foods are you consuming in terms of salt intake? We know the average or the recommended is 1,500 milligrams per day. All right, so that is one focus, nutrition, salt. Also consumption of water, also looking at sleep. Oftentimes we don't get enough sleep. So that's another factor. We need to try to get 8 hours of sleep per day. Also looking at exercise. But the main thing is having a plan. There's one thing to get medication, to go home, but it's another thing to say, you know what, let me figure out a plan that I can incorporate for myself and to couple that with talking to my primary care and work on small goals, whether it's walking one time a week and then gradually increase it. And your physician will help you be accountable in terms of your lifestyle, because the meds are there, you're taking them, that's good, but also a plan. What is your plan to make those changes? So that's what I would recommend. Nutrition, make sure you're getting your fiber, make sure you're getting your water, make sure you're getting your nuts, but also looking at animal products, how that is playing a part into your nutrition, and how can we eat healthier. I'm not saying to stop consuming meat, but how can we create cuisines a little differently, a little better? So nutrition, exercise, but also stress management. Stress is a factor, a major factor as it relates to cortisol, as it relates to adrenaline. How can we reduce that, but also maintain a healthy lifestyle? So that's what I would recommend.
Yeah. Question first before I tease it
And
out.
we're going to do this like you're in your family room. If you have something to say, just jump to this mic and come ahead and say it. We're okay.
Yeah.
We're going to just keep it relaxed.
Yeah, thank you for the comments. What about people as you get older and you're on blood pressure medication for prolonged periods of time? I think a lot of us have that concern about that. Isn't that also a risk factor for other things to go wrong in your body?
No, that's a great point. So, I think one of the things that there is a balance. There's a seesaw. And so what ends up happening is the fact that our first goal, from my perspective in my practice, And truth be told, I don't see patients any longer for the past year. But before that, when I was on a regular basis, my goal is first, lower your risk. We're starting on this journey together. We have to lower your risk. That's first and foremost, because I don't want you to have a stroke or heart attack, kidney failure. That means medications. But simultaneously, we're going to go hard in the paint and try to reduce your risk otherwise. So when we look at what Dr. Stewart brought up, that's not just smoke and mirrors, folks. So when we talk about sunlight, that's kind of written inside of like the health and wellness here inside the SDA Church, do you recognize that your skin has stores of nitrates that are there, essentially nitroglycerin, to dilate the vessels, that becomes activated when you get in the sun. That when you have measured doses of sunlight, that there's power that's there that begins to dilate the vessels. And it's released, the stores that are there become released. That's where the power is. That when you go out and you have that morning sunlight that hits your retina, the melanocytes, all of a sudden it triggers the production of melanin. So then that way you're going to be able to get better sleep in that particular later on that night. That becomes powerful. When we look at the nutrition and we talk about green leafy vegetables, these green leafy vegetables, they actually play a role across the spectrum from cancer to diabetes, but specifically as it relates to heart disease, they actually will provide, once again, they impact your endothelium. That's the lining of the vessels. That lining of the vessels is so important to prevent that squeezing constriction. So now when you store these things up and you're increasing, not just I'm gonna have a little bit, well, how much is the exact amount? Well, studies probably are close to around 2 cups, to be honest with you. Somewhere around 8 to 16 ounces. I try and go more than that, to be honest with you. I'm trying to get dark green leafy vegetables. So you say, well, which ones are the best ones? Okay, well, arugula is amongst the best. Bok choy is very good. The young man said that today, right? Bok choy is good, right? So you want to have your mustards, your collards, all these things become extremely powerful for you in terms of building your vascular health. You're not only trying to attack the endothelium, the nitric oxide production, but also prevent the smooth muscle from constricting so much. So then you look at your fiber. Very similarly, you're activating what's called your short-chain fatty acids inside your stomach, what we call the microbiome. That becomes important for changing the whole dynamics of it. Your goal ultimately is to decrease that stiffness of your vessels. So now when I have the natto, right, or my fermented foods, that will go ahead and impact my vitamin K2, which has been shown to decrease the calcification, to help decrease the stiffness of your vessels. So now I'm very targeted in my approach. I'm adding in my garlic. Why am I adding in garlic? Because it hits my microbiome. It's also part of what we call the allium family, and it helps decrease the platelet stickiness and helps, once again, restore the vascular endothelium, that lining of the vessels. So I'm getting my garlic daily. I'm getting my onions that are there. I'm adding in my watermelon. I don't care if it's a stereotype or not. Young man said watermelon. Why am I having watermelon? Well, I mean, for some of the men who are married, it can have beneficial effects for you. I'm gonna tell you that right now. All right, but beyond that, so it's going to help stimulate that L-arginine that's there that will help in terms of that vascular endothelium again. It's all a matter of the endothelial function. Becomes extremely powerful that's there. So as I'm loading in all these things, I'm having my berries that has my anthocyanins that has the same effect. All these things he mentioned, I want to tell you that there is a pathophysiologic mechanism of where it can be beneficial. Now, is that going to be the same for everyone? No, it's not. There are some people who are going to have all of this and still will have elevated blood pressure. That will still have potential risk. Someone said, and I'm gonna stop so we can get back, but the last thing I'm gonna say here, right? I had a wise attending when I was inside of training. He said, guess what, Columbus? There's one thing that's not defeated, and that's death, except for Christ, right? You're born and you die. Our goal is, can we lower our risk and increase our health span as long as possible? This is not about telling you you're going to be invincible and you're going to live forever. The question is, can we increase our health span? And there's suggestion that we can actually do it by being very intentional like this. So you bring up an excellent point. You have to find a provider that's willing to adjust your medications according to what your diet is and according to what your values are.
I'm not sure if that fully answered your question, because you're saying taking blood pressure or medications over the long period of time, and is that going to affect other parts of your body as a result of trying to fix something else? I don't know if that, can you address that for us, Ramona? Dr. Snipes?
I'll wait for Dr. Columbus to come back for that one. But I will reiterate what he said earlier, is that the timeliness of reducing your risk factors is also important. So will you be able to come off blood pressure medication? For some people, yes, as he mentioned before. But for other people, no. And so while you are reducing your risk factors, you are exposing yourself to dangerous things for a shorter duration of time. So I still think it's very important that as soon as possible you lower your blood pressure along with all the other things that are risks to your health. And so short-term goals and long-term goals are things you need to consider with your primary care. So the question was, is taking the blood pressure medication long-term a risk overall?
So studies haven't shown that. Thank you for that. And I get lost in the comments. So studies haven't shown, so let's say, for instance, that you're on whatever, there's different classes of medications, and they're all built on targeting certain systems in the body's vasculature. Has it been shown to cause a harm? Definitely shown to cause side effects. There's no doubt about it. So there's for sure side effects that are going to happen with every single pharmaceutical that's out there. But in terms of chronicity of taking it, will it lead to it? What I find more than side effects is I see that people will build up not an intolerance, but their blood pressure will still remain elevated or will peak back up. And that could be from a multitude of factors, because we get a false sense of security when we're on the medications, that we can keep doing what we're doing and not really pay attention to the small things that matter an awful lot. And I use an analogy of when you're baking a cake, which y'all aren't eating cake, I know that, but you know there's baking soda, right? Now, baking soda is just a small amount that you're putting inside there. The flour and all the eggs and the butter are all the big components of it. But if you put the wrong amount of baking soda in there, or baking powder, that cake is not going to turn out right. That's what we're talking about, all the little things that matter an awful lot, but we ignore.
Does that answer your question? Okay, I saw a hand over there. Yes.
I have a question. Now, we are all fortunate to be here, and we're fortunate to have a community that is, versed in our health, and we can do all of this. But you all have mentioned a couple of times walking alongside of your primary care. That, I believe, in most of our communities doesn't happen. Because if you're part of a huge conglomerate healthcare system, you are number 522, yes, please go in that room. So they may not have the ability to have that general hospital kind of thing where that person you call on the phone, hey doc, can you help me out? They may not have that. So how do we deal with these kinds of situations when your healthcare provider is a long way away? It's a bus ride, it's the subway, it's all of those things, and they send you home with this, and you have no clue what they've just told you, and now you have to manage that healthcare. So how would you suggest either that person does that, or how we can help our community with that?
You are correct, first and foremost. And going back to the research, there's a significant amount of research that cultural concordance between the primary care physician and the patient themselves is a key to quality outcomes. And so sometimes there are cultural things that we can't define and articulate that allow an individual to have a connection, a trust relationship, a way of communicating that is more effective in improving healthcare outcomes than other things. And yes, I'm part of a large healthcare system, and they are seeing patients every 20 minutes. And then at the end of the day, they go back home, and those same clinicians are spending 3-4 hours to answer the messages that you sent during the day, and they're not catching up. And so the communication is not as effective as it ought to be in order for you to have all of your questions asked. There's something else that makes it difficult. The healthcare literacy of the community is not what it used to be. They have defunded education around healthcare and basic healthcare sciences in the community, in our public schools. They have removed also some of the programs that used to make that information readily available to healthcare. I'll use the term consumers. But these are our lives, and they are super important. It was almost 70 years ago that Martin Luther King Jr. talked about the significant injustice in healthcare and how it leads to true death. 70 years. Seeing any changes? We still die more often, the more melanated you are, at younger ages than we ought to in the general community in the United States, here in the West. And so what we need to see is that communities are educating communities. You're going to be next. We are walking alongside each other. to help each other understand what we need to do. What struck me while we were talking is that there's a ton of information coming from this table, and I don't know if you'll take home more than 10, 20% of it. And yet, where we each live in terms of our health, we didn't get there overnight, and it will take some time to improve. Not going to be overnight. What are the small incremental changes that each person can make? What education can you capture and hold on to and make that change, you and your community? Because community, we have not talked about it as much, but community matters in your health. That trusting God piece, that stress reduction that we've been talking about, you cannot do it by yourself, and you cannot do it, most likely, without a faith-based system for where you put all that angst and stress. And so, as we think about how we communicate with each other, how we learn from each other, how we educate the next generation, I think it's really important. I'll stop with this. There are more people living over the age of 100 in Japan than anywhere else in the world. They have become a rich country, and they have not gotten fat. And they are living longer, and they are living healthier. That is intentional investment in the education and the health of the community at large. And as Dr. Batiste has said, your cells don't know that they live in a melanated person's body. This is not a genetic predisposition. This is about how we are living and what we are putting inside of us. So I do think that there's a lot about what you said, but there are also remedies, and this is part of that remedy, educating each other and educating the community.
And Eric, we'll let you answer the question, and then if you can just introduce yourself afterwards.
So I just want to piggyback on what Dr. Ramona just said. It's really important that we as Seventh-day Adventists especially understand that God has allowed some of this friction to happen because literally we can be, for many people, what that question describes as the disadvantage and the gaps. This church has been placed in a very unique position. We've been told that the health message is the right arm of the gospel. We hear that. And we are often in communities where people are experiencing everything that was just said. Where literally, I mean, you go to the doctor's office. I'm a doctor, and I go sometimes, and I'm like, I have no idea what this person actually really wants, and I have to tell them what I want them to do. Like, you need to do this, right? So it's difficult to do that. But I want to put in a plug for the Healthy Heart Nation and the work that Columbus and Danette have been doing through that. And I know Danette does a lot of it. I see it online. Because it's going to take that. I think as African Americans, a lot of times we still think someone's coming to save us. It's not going to happen. If you want economic, if you want educational, you want health improvement, we actually need to be architects of that. And one of the best places are our institutions of faith. So just to piggyback on that, it's not just about believing in God and leaving your trials there. It's using the collective resources to give the individuals in our community a place to go and get help. And that's really the challenge that's before us. So our healthcare system is a broken system. Let me piggyback on what was just said about Japan. Japan invests. Japan has a good system. But Japan has not left its culture of health. It did not allow capitalism to disrupt the fact that they eat seaweed and that they eat tofu and that they eat lots and lots of vegetables and that they go to bed at a certain time and they eat till they're 80% full and that they walk around. Whereas in America, we've allowed the opportunity for someone to profit to determine our health. So when I was growing up, what was a treat? When you're poor, what was a treat? You get to go where? McDonald's. You get a Happy Meal. You might go in the dirty bubble thing, balls and stuff. My mother didn't like us going in there, so I never really got to go in it because she was like, could be razors in there or something. Jamaican, So, but that's the difference. So here's the truth. It's a prophetic truth. I spoke on prophecy this morning, so it's in my head. You have to come out of Babylon. You see, the one trying to feed you is Babylon. Not you, us. It's as if we're at Nebuchadnezzar's plate, or his table, I should say. And so just as Daniel and the 3 Hebrew boys had to make a decision to stick with what the scripture said on these things, We collectively also have to do that. And it's not easy when you're in Babylon. I was talking to them this morning about when I was in Ghana. I came out of the conference office after I spoke at the conference office in Ghana, West Africa, Kentucky Fried Chicken, right outside, across the street. I go to Jamaica to preach, and there's a line down the street at the Kentucky Fried Chicken. I had a lady help us in the place we were staying. We had to help her, and I said, how do you want me to pay you? She said, just buy me a bucket of Kentucky Fried Chicken as her payment. So we have to make a decision to come out of Babylon as well, and we collectively need to be a resource for the people who need these resources, which is what I think we're trying to do here. I'm Eric Walsh. I think most of y'all know me, so I won't say nothing else. All right. Go ahead.
If I can just say one extra thing about what he said about resources in Babylon. If I can say one more thing. I said this last night while I was working in the emergency department. We are in the middle of Framingham country. What that means to physicians is all of the research about lifestyle diseases and its impact on your health is called the Framingham study. It covered multiple decades. It looked at multiple risk factors across hundreds and thousands of people. And that's how we know about the social determinants of health, hypertension, diabetes, high cholesterol, and its impact on your health. We also are sitting in the neighborhood of the only blue zone in North America. And Framingham country still wins in my practice. And that speaks to me that Loma Linda is right there. And so is Framingham country, side by side, walking together. That is a problem. That to me is a dereliction of duty for those of us who know the health message. And so when I talk about how we should be learning from each other and supporting each other, that is our commission. We have been told and taught to do that work, and so we need to be educating ourselves, educating each other, and helping each other understand what it means to be healthy and improve our health span. And I'll stop there. I saw a hand.
And I know there's another question, but I just want to make sure we answered yours. And so your question was really about how you can find the right provider and to ensure that you're supported as a patient or as a and I guess the statement is, if the person that you're working with, the physician you're working with, isn't working with you or for you, find someone else. You still are empowered to do that for yourself. And it may take time, but I know that for myself, I need a relationship with who I am with. If I'm in there for 20 minutes, if I can't relate to you, if I'm not getting a good feeling from you, then it's not going to work for me. And so I need to find someone that is going to be that for me. And so my advice is for you to find someone who will be that for you.
I understand that. I think for my question really was about our community who doesn't have these kinds of networks and who may not have that kind of voice. They get to the physician's office and they're looking, what do I do? Right. You know, we have the ability to have relationships with the healthcare system because of our community that we happen to be in, but most of our surrounding community doesn't have that relationship and doesn't think that they can do that. So that's what I'm saying.
So true.
So if you're not writing this stuff down, please do get your phone out. I'm gonna give you 3 words. I know we talked about this at our first talk, Batiste, that will get every physician to stop in their tracks and answer your question. So get your phones out. That's all you need. So tell your cousins, anybody else that you don't think is educated, not Adventist, doesn't know things. These 3 words will get them to stop whatever they're doing. What is my differential diagnosis?
No, it's working. It's working. It was working.
I don't know how to spell it. Differential. Differential.
Differential diagnosis.
We're taught to have 2 or 3 different diagnoses for any problem. That's how we're taught. No one else knows that first. So if your cousin pulled me, says, hey, sir, what's my differential diagnosis? I promise you that doctor will stop what you're doing and talk. I promise. Those 3 words. That's all you need. What's my differential diagnosis? If you feel like you're being blown off, after that, we'll stop.
Okay, differential diagnosis. Phrase of the afternoon.
That's it. That's all you need. I promise you.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
You don't need to know what it means. The doctor will know what it means.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yes, they will. Yes, they will.
I mean, it's the same as when you when your car starts shaking, what are the potential causes? The tire's messed up, the rotation needs to be fixed, or it could be you rolled over a cat. No, I'm sorry, you didn't do that. But whatever it may be, you're trying to figure it out, and that's what we're doing, the same point. Sheila, to your question, I believe, and this is the charge I'm going to put out to all of us, I think that it piggybacks on what Ramona said in terms of our derelict of duty as having the knowledge of the health message and not giving it to the world, right? We've now become the tail and not the foot, but we can still run and do something. And I think that our job and our obligation is to use the platform of social media to spread the message of the health components so then that way it can reach the communities where they're not. But not just that, under the guise of how to speak to your doctor, what questions to ask, right? Just an approach. Is this going to help me feel better? Or is this going to help me live longer? Is this something that's going to be for the rest of my life? The recommendations, doctor, says as a class 1 indication for us to undertake lifestyle medicine for 3 months at a minimum, according to the 2025 American College of Cardiology guidelines on hypertension. What are we doing for that? How am I going to undergo that? Right? So now we arm you with information that you can use that will make a provider stop and think and figure out, well, you know what? They kind of know what they're talking about. Let me see. We can set you up here and here. Last thing I'll say is I'll never forget my dad. I was in med school. I'm learning about diabetes, and I saw his regimen for his diabetes control was just insulin sliding scale. And he had been a diabetic. I was a pleasant surprise, a hiccup. So I know he had been a diabetic for 20 plus 30 years. So I wrote down on a piece of paper all these questions I wanted him to ask his provider. He just handed the paper to the provider. This is real truth scenario. He said he never saw that provider start ordering a bunch of tests. I never told you to do this like this, and started doing a bunch of things because he realized that there was something he had access to information. Cynthia, then we'll go there.
I want to add one thing. Cynthia, I'm so sorry because you've tried before. I want you to have the right mindset about where you put your physician in your overall health portfolio. We believe that about 20% of your health is impacted by the healthcare system. The other 80% is the social determinants of health. And so where the health message comes in, it fills in that 80% gap, as well as the community of believers. And so it's still important to find a doctor that mirrors your value system and spends the right time giving you information that's helpful to you. But I also want you to know that as great as that relationship is, that will not improve your health span by itself. Sorry, Sister Cynthia, go ahead.
Oh, I can go now. Okay. So, a quick question. I have two. I have a friend, and she called me the other day, and she told me, she was like, oh, I've been juicing, watching what I'm eating, not eating a lot of fast food, and she's on blood pressure medication. And it's been like 125 over 80, something like that. And she just took it the other day. She said it was 137 over 92. Is that high?
Yes.
Okay. Well, she then said to me, she doesn't understand why it's high because she's juicing and not eating fast food, and she wanted to get off her medication, and she's been trying to do things naturally without taking the blood pressure medication. And so my question is to you, what would you advise me to tell her, because she believes the medication, blood pressure medication, is not helping. She wants to do natural things to bring her blood pressure down, but just the other day, like I said, it was 137 over 92. Ken, you want to take that one?
First.
A couple things. One is, what else is she doing in terms of her lifestyle? Is she going to bed late? Is she consuming, when she consumes food, is it high salt intake? Is she not exercising? Is she not drinking enough water? So I would not just focus on just the juicing, I would also look at what are some other factors that may be contributing to her high blood pressure, in addition to her taking the blood pressure medication.
But she doesn't want to take the blood pressure medication. She wants to go natural.
I understand that, but the question is, what are some other health factors that she may not be doing that can help to reduce?
So let me jump in on that one. So I think what Dr. Ken is saying is you need to be doing everything. And so honestly, you would need more information to do that. But hi, Cynthia, good to see you. So here's one of the things I would say. One of the things a lot of people don't know is that salt is not the sole contributor to high blood pressure. And a lot of people think if you remove salt, I read an article recently that sugar is. And maybe I've already said that before I got here. Sugar is. And when I read that, I said that makes a lot of things start to make sense. Because it's not just that the standard American diet or the soul food diet are high in salt. By default, they're high in sugar. So you mix the two things together. So if she's juicing, that's good. It would be interesting to see if she's juicing mostly fruit. Is her juice mostly vegetable and then she touches it up with fruit to make it taste good? Right, so what's the ratio? Maybe she's just getting too much sugar without fiber into her system and she's sensitive to that and it's keeping her blood pressure up. I don't know. The other thing is exercise. As Dr. Ken said, exercise is real important that that she gets out there because that dilates the blood vessels and make it go down. Now, a lot of people say, well, I want to do things naturally and I don't want to use medicines and stuff like that. And that actually is the right approach. She's correct. But you have to understand that even that is a process because you can't just come off of it and you don't want to risk having a stroke. The blood pressure medicines can protect you from that as you get off of those medicines if you're able to do it naturally. So sometimes people say, well, I want to do it naturally, and they don't realize sometimes, and not in this case, but doing it naturally may actually be more dangerous if you're not aware of everything else that's going on. But I would have to we probably want to talk to her more and find out what else she's doing.
And if I could add, sometimes we think sugar is always sweet. Any simple carbohydrate that you're consuming is sugar. Your body sees it as sugar. And so your pasta, your simple pastas, your simple white rice, your simple breads, if the bread doesn't make you chew a whole lot and make your jaw right here tired, that's simple carbohydrates, and your body sees that as sugar. Your wonderful ice cream, all of those things that you eat that are starchy without fiber are sugar to your body. So it's not just the sweet fruits that she's juicing and taking them out of the package that God put them in. Yes, you get a lot of nutrition very, very quickly, but is that something that you need to do every day all the time, or is that something you need to do specifically targeted to address an issue? How we juice is also important. So just talking about how we define sugar is also really important.
Is exploding. So I have three things that sort of popped in my head. The 20 versus 80 explanation, healthcare system versus social determinant. Just want to make sure, when we say social determinant, was that a euphemism for diet and lifestyle?
No, so when you look at social determinants, you're looking at your entire community. So classically, historically, you're looking at where you live, work, play, and pray, right? So that may mean the construct of your community. That could be everything from the pollution. That could be the noise.
Right, so that's what I heard. So how I processed that was 20% of your health is due to your healthcare system and their policies and craziness. And the other 80% is due to stuff that's out of your control. That's what I heard. 20% is healthcare system, 80% is social determinants that are out of your control.
Okay, pause.
I'm just saying that's what I heard.
Yeah. So no, I'm glad you point that out because some people do miss that, and I think again for African Americans, I think we can't believe we don't have control, or else we're really in trouble. Because the truth of the matter is, what lays out social determinants? One of the components is education. Education is a social determinant. The quality of schools in your neighborhood, the quality of education you ultimately get, the more educated you become, it is protective against certain health things. Where you work is a social determinant. The relationship you have with employment on your job is also a social determinant. That's something that you can impact. Education impacts where you work. and where, you know, and you can change where you work. Where you live impacts that. Now, not everybody can move when they want to, but there are things that you can do if you live in a neighborhood that isn't the best neighborhood. And then access to things like fresh fruits, vegetables is also a social determinant. But Dr. Batiste always tells the story how his father used to drive them out of Compton 2 or 3, I don't know how far I used to drive to the grocery store twice a month to get the stuff that you want. So the social determinants of health can be a trap, or if you are aware, and Adventism, again, because of the emphasis we have on education, a lot of our young people, even if, no matter where they grow up, a lot of times they wind up getting more educated. And the studies show that African American Adventists are more educated than other African Americans, partly because of our denomination's emphasis on education. So you're not stuck with your social determinants of health. Your social determinants of health are just determinants, but you get to determine how much that's going to impact you, because you can become more educated. You can, switch jobs if you need to switch jobs. Those things that are in your power to do, you can do. Not everybody is going to be as easy as other people to do it, but for most of the folk we come across, there is an ability to manage those social determinants to be more healthy.
Let me just add one thing before you respond back, okay? So we never know which of the components is going to be the most detrimental. So that's always in every situation. A great reflection of that is a community in Rosetto. They call it like the Rosetto phenomenon. And so this community, they had a tight-knit family community, and they withstood the impact of coronary disease because they had generational benefits that were there continually, right? So generational family that was living inside the home and everything else. This is despite living in environments where there was fast food, there was smoking and other aspects that were there. What I'm saying is the fact that in general, when we look at large-scale studies, there is definitely a demarcation of those who have poorer outcomes who live in communities that are under-resourced. That's all that's saying. And they're saying that the role of going and getting your vaccinations, getting your medications, getting your checkups, that plays a smaller role in comparison to everything at large.
Let's see what he has to say, but it's been an hour already. I don't know if you all feel like it's been an hour, but go ahead.
So the earlier comment about keeping sodium under 1,500 milligrams, the earlier comment regarding keeping sodium under 1,500 milligrams before we introduce this new confounder, sugar. From fruit. The
Sugar from anything.
actionable advice on that, what would you say to people that do not have access to education? How would you keep your sodium to under 1,500 milligrams? Can you eat at fast foods? Can you eat at restaurants? Can you eat other people's prepared food? Can you shop down the aisles in the grocery store? How do you keep your sodium to under 1,500 milligrams? Just from an actionable standpoint, assuming that sugar is not the new cause of high blood pressure.
So, and thank you for that question. Understanding, number one, where that person lives. If you were to come to me and say, hey, Dr. Stewart, I got you on the sodium. Okay. Okay. All right. So I would say, number one, hey, thank you for coming in and talking to me. All right. I understand that your blood pressure is high. Let's focus on ways to reduce your intake of sodium. Where do you eat? Do you eat fast food? No, you don't eat fast food. You do eat fast food? Okay, let's figure out where you can go that can help to reduce your consumption. You may be eating 3 days a week or 3 meals a day, fast food. Let's reduce it to 2 days a week. Let's focus on making some small changes. I'm not saying to just cut out fast food because, hey, you're in a situation where that's what you do right now. So let's focus on how to reduce that from 3 to 2. That's the first thing. One goal. The second goal is, okay, can you go outside of your environment? Do you take the bus? Or you take the bus? Okay, what are some other ways to get to where that healthy supermarket is? Do you need to do Uber? okay, let's work on that. Let me provide you with resources to get that Uber to get to that spot to be able to get fresh food. The third thing I would say is, okay, let's talk about how you can increase your cooking at home. All right, what do you like to eat? Better yet, why don't we do this? For the next week, I want you to track what you eat. And then come and see me to figure out what we can do to make some small changes. The last thing I would say is go talk to your doctor. Make sure that they put you on some medication to help you manage your blood pressure. But then come back and see me in a couple weeks so we can work on fine-tuning you eating out less, helping you manage your salt intake.
So does that conversation get me under 15 or just gets me lower from where I am?
So let me jump in. So there's a couple things. Let me jump in. So first of all, there's two ways you keep your sodium under 1,500. The first one is math, right? So you have to train the person to actually read the packets. You can, before you go to any restaurant, you can go online and get the nutritional information on the food in the restaurant and actually do it, and then do the math to keep yourself under 1,500. If it's really important to you to keep your blood pressure down and stay off of medications, then you'll do that math. I mean, it's not that difficult. Sugar's not a new confounder. You said that, but that's actually not a good way to describe it. The truth of the matter is what we're really saying is processed foods are going to cause this problem. The way to do this without math is simple. It's simply to eat the way the Bible says eat, which means you stay on the outsides of the grocery store, you stay in the fruit and vegetable section, and you learn to eat things like tofu and beans. So let's go back to the social determinants of health. And let me blow, if maybe you guys said this already, but let me blow your mind on this one. Latinos, who are very akin to Black America in terms of, if you look at the gradient of income. In fact, in many ways, Black Americans actually do better than Latinos. And when I lived in California, I remember having a lot of good Mexican friends when I worked, and they're like, why do Black people seem to do so well? I said, we got our own college and university system. That helps us out a lot. HBCUs, right? So we can self-educate. Our kids have somewhere to go, right? Which you don't have necessarily in the United States. But Latinos have the same socioeconomic, social determinants as Black people. Many of them, not all Blacks, not all Latinos clearly, same bad schools, same difficulty with jobs, same exposure to pollution, same dysfunction with the legal system and all of that. Yet Latinos live longer than white people. Why do Latinos live longer than white people?
And community?
I think it's a combination of two things. One of them is the commitment to family. So I do think there's a strong community component. But I think from a dietary standpoint, you said it just now, beans. Now, here's where it gets powerful then. All we talk about social determinants of health, and I have a doctorate in public health, and I love the social determinants of health. Once I got out in the real world, I realized you can actually be hogtied with the social determinants of health because they can become self-fulfilling prophecy. So Latinos tell you, actually, that's not true. Latinos live longer than, I'm gonna say it again, they live longer than white people. And they do it, in large part, I believe, because key to every Latino community's diet is some form of beans as one component of it. And beans are that helpful. How powerful are beans? That when you go back to Daniel chapter 1, and you read the story of Daniel and the three Hebrew boys dealing with Nebuchadnezzar's food, they say, we give us pulse and water to drink. What does pulse translate to? Lentils. I want to tell you that is how powerful beans can be. Now, it's not that, I don't want to oversimplify it, but I think I see where you're trying to lead us. The truth of the matter is, when you're giving advice, one of the ways you can give advice is just stay away from processed foods. I mean, if you don't want to do the math, stay off the processed foods, stay out of the fast food restaurants, stay out of restaurants in general, because in order to get you to come back to their restaurant, they're going to give you lots of salt, they're going to give you lots of sugar, because that's hyper palatable, and the food becomes addicting. Cheese is addicting. Everybody know cheese actually has heroin-like compounds in it. Did you know that? Casomorphones are in cheese so that the calf will drink from the cow. So that every time you eat cheese, it is an addictive substance. And the federal government, when Columbus and I used to do those slave food things, we blow people's mind, because the federal government is the one funding the fact that you got cheese in the crust of your pizza. It ain't enough to put cheese on top of your pizza. They got it inside the crust, right? And they do that because there's waste animal fat from the cow's milk. They've got to do something and they want to make a profit off of. That's why, how many of y'all ever had government cheese growing up? Oh, I did too. It was real good. It melted funny, but it was good. All of that was to make you addicted to this hyper-palatable food. So and cheese is loaded with salt, if we're gonna go back to salt. So I would tell people, listen, go to a whole food plant-based diet that is not incorporating all of the processed foods. Now the challenge with that, to Dr. Kent's point, is then you have to teach them how to do that. Yeah. You do have to show them how to do that and where to get it. You said the person lived next to a grocery store. So if they just have decent stuff in the grocery store, canned beans, if that's all they can do, but dried beans are probably better, you can actually teach them to make 2 or 3 or 4 things. Like in Jamaica, they make stew peas. Stew peas is amazing. And stew peas is actually quite good for you. As long as you don't have too much of them roly dumpling in it, right?
Spinners.
The spinners.
And a big deal. I just want to leave 7 words with you when you're grocery shopping. Eat real food, minimally processed, mostly plants. That's where you shop. Eat real food, minimally processed, mostly plants. That's what most plant-forward people do, right? And that's how you grocery shop.
Question. We're going to go to the next.
How important is sleep? Sleep. I know most of you do your 6 to 8 hours a night and are done with it, okay? All right. I try to exercise. I ride once a week. I do like 20 miles. I go to the gym, right? I walk with a group every Sunday morning. We hike and so on. I try to eat well. And still, when I go to sleep, I do about 4.5 to 5 hours. Then I'm fully awake. Then I go in my computer, etc. And then 2 hours later, I want to sleep again. I want to go to bed. I never can do 6 hours straight. Is my problem because I like cheese? Maybe I can replace that with...
Maybe it's that computer.
It could be the computer. The blue light from the computer can do it too. And the other question I would have for you is no caffeine, right? No chocolate, no tea, no coffee?
Once a day.
There's some research that they want to
Yeah, you know,
That's it.
I'm gonna add in there too as well. So, you know, I kind of alluded to this during service, Lex. So, I think you have to look at, one is getting your mind. You have to get your mind prepared. So when you get ready to go on your bike rides and your hike, you should be stretching, right? You should be stretching first, right? So you don't tear an Achilles or mess your ACL up or anything else like that. You should be, right? So I mean, position heal yourself, right? Listen, you joined the club. I tore mine too, right? So I mean, but we're supposed to be, so we have to do the same thing with our sleep. We have to get our body ready for sleep. We rush into sleep like, okay, we're doing everything, let's sleep. It doesn't work like that. You need to wind down. You need to turn off the TVs. You have to go ahead and get your mind prepared. Maybe that's when you're doing your prayer, your meditation. That's when you're doing your breathing components there too as well. Because guess what that does? That gets your body ready. You're activating the parasympathetic tone in that moment. So that becomes extremely important to do as a whole. So it's going to be a combination. It's never going to be one thing. But yes, you want to avoid stimulants. You want to avoid the overstimulation. You may say, my TV's off, but you're on TikTok and Facebook and everything else. You got to turn that down completely. You want to black out the lights and get your mind and your body ready as best as possible. And that still may not be enough because we live in a stress world. And so you may have to go on a hiatus from news for a while and avoid the whole news cycle in order to get yourself toned down a little bit.
Yeah, because some of you guys, some of y'all so mad at Trump, y'all can't sleep. And I'm going to tell you, you cannot let Donald Trump live in your head rent-free. It is not of God. So you gotta let him go and get your sleep because Jesus is coming soon and he ain't going to matter. But let me say this. Here's some key tricks to sleep. One of them is a book. We've been trained that when we can't sleep, we go to our phone or to our computer. I challenge you to pick up The Great Controversy and read it and watch how quick you go back to sleep at 4:30 in the morning. And I absolutely love The Great Controversy. Somebody else say amen. That thing will put you right back down, brother. You'll be right there sleeping, REM sleep, deep sleep, restorative sleep. You'll be right in the morning. So that's one. A book will help you. Number two, melatonin. So I asked you about coffee, tea, and stuff. You have to get that. You want to get that out of your diet because you may be slow at processing it, and it's supposed the half-life of caffeine is 6 hours. What if in you it's 8 or 10 hours because you have some enzyme that's slow? So at 4 o'clock in the morning, you still got caffeine in you, you won't sleep. You got to come off the caffeine. There's a reason Ellen White warned us against it. And it's sad that there are churches now putting espresso machines in their lobby because it goes against what we as Adventists have always taught and what the science teaches. If you don't want to believe Ellen White, believe what the science teaches. And here's why that's so important. Twofold. To sleep well, deep, and long, you need melatonin. What we know is that to make melatonin, you first got to make serotonin. If you're not making serotonin, you can't make melatonin. And to make serotonin, you need tryptophan. The more simple your diet, more plant-based your diet, the easier it is for tryptophan to cross the blood-brain barrier, get an advantage, make serotonin, which makes you calm. In fact, when someone takes Prozac, what they're trying to do is increase their serotonin levels. So it's a natural way to do it is with your diet. Once you do that, you'll make melatonin, which is also the strongest antioxidant known to man. And it's an endogenous antioxidant, but it's what gives you that nice deep sleep, helps you fall asleep and gives you that nice deep sleep. Here's a way you can get melatonin that a lot of people don't know about. Pistachios. 2 pistachios is better than taking a melatonin pill. You could take 2 pistachios at night if you take a supplement that with fat soluble vitamins, and it will actually raise your melatonin. So pistachios with no oil roasting. Don't get them with the hot Cheeto flavor and all that kind of stuff. Burn a hole in your stomach while you sleep. But you take the pistachios, and pistachios will actually give you melatonin. Melatonin is key. And here's the thing. Let me give you this. Because when you don't sleep, something deeper happens spiritually. It is during your dream phases of sleep, REM sleep, and the other deep phases of sleep, that you actually process trauma. Let me say this, because when I read this for myself, I was blown out of water because I've had a lot of trauma in my life. If you don't sleep well, you don't allow the body. God designed you. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. God designed you so that when you sleep, you have an inborn natural therapy program in your body. With that combined with the way that you do the glial shrink, and you actually have the brain wash itself and clean itself, that actually restores you and reduces the risk of dementia. Many of us deal with stress and problems in life. God designed you so that when you sleep, you actually process it and blunt the norepinephrine effects that causes stress and high blood pressure during the day. Sleep is supposed to do that. This is why the devil wants you drinking caffeine. That's why he wants you drinking alcohol. Because if you're doing those things, your ability to emotionally heal is blunted. And this is why Jesus says, "Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden." And what does Jesus say? I'll give you rest.
I'm going to let you go, Ken, in just a second. So I was just told by my wife that we have a time check of 16 minutes. So we're about to enter into a rapid fire phase of like short questions. I'm going to let you, Ken, go, and then I'm going to let you go.
Yes. Yeah, just one quick thing. Reserve your bed for the 3 S's.
Don't say it in church.
3 S's. Sleep for when you're sick, and we know the last one. That's it.
You can say it, kid. You can say it.
Sleep when you're sick and having sex. That's it.
You said it.
All right?
Just a quick question. I want to thank the panel. Wonderful discussion. I want to direct this to Dr. Walsh because he knows my ministry. What can I do for those? This is wonderful information. What can I do for those who don't have the opportunities that we have, who are incarcerated, to maybe get their blood pressure down? They don't have the, you know what I'm saying, Doc, because you're with me.
And it's good because I was just talking to them earlier today about my time as the medical director for the jail system for Orange County, California. And one of the things I was trying to do while I was there, I was working for the Orange County Health Department, is to introduce better food options for them. And so when, and when I go in with you twice a year. When we go in, maybe next year, we go in and maybe we do something on our health message. Because if they're incarcerated and they're coming to Christian programming, they may be very open to hearing Genesis 1:29, Daniel chapter 1, and all the other verses of Scripture that actually tell you all of these beautiful truths that are protective. What you can do is empower them with information, and then after that, it's difficult to, you know how hard it is to change the California correction system, but they can be empowered because they do have rights. And they can ask for different things in prison. In jail, I just have to make sure that if someone was Hindu and said they eat a certain way, we had to find them that kind of food. If they were Muslim and they were halal, we had to find them that kind of food. So if we can empower them in that regard, and then of course empower them more importantly for when they get out. What do they do when they get out so that they can transform this thing? Because a lot of people actually do better incarcerated because it's so regimented. Right? They sleep at a certain time, they eat at a certain time. And when you're outside, one of the things that actually messes up most of our health is our schedules, our health schedule. We eat at a different time every day, sleep at a different time every day. That's actually not good for you. So we can talk offline, but I think there are things you can empower them with to help them to make better choices inside and then when they get out.
That's what I want to do. We'll do that tomorrow.
Just a quick reminder, with the melatonin, just to follow up, make sure that you're not taking excessive amounts because you will blunt your body's ability to make it. So you only want about 1 milligram or so of it. Do not take multiple milligrams, 5 milligrams, all these compilations of melatonin when you're taking that.
Thank you. And since we have the cardiologist and the primary care physician amongst us, I just want us to talk about, in some high blood pressure, they have to combine medications for our patients to bring down their blood pressure. And some of us are educated and non-educated. We believe that when they prescribe to us blood pressure medicine, we just have to take everything the same time. Why some cardiac medication may lower our blood pressure too. And if the blood pressure is too low, we find ourselves in the hospital anyway. So if you can please just enlighten us more about combination medications.
Yeah, no, thank you for that question. I just received a phone call. It's not HIPAA because I'm not her doctor, from my mother-in-law. Called me on the phone and said, Columbus, I feel light and faint. It's like, okay, well, tell me what your blood pressure is. And she told me what it was, and it was low. And said, okay, have you communicated with your doctor? No, she had not. That's a big issue in terms of not communicating. The relationship is bidirectional, or it should be, and this is back to Sheila's question earlier, as it relates to it. So the medications, starting first within the realm of cardiology, that we will treat for heart failure and other conditions for chronic angina, those also have blood pressure lowering effects. So they're never in isolation. What we find they're almost like WD-40. We use it a little bit for everything. For arrhythmias, for heart failure, for angina, and we'll use the medications that also will lower the blood pressure, will impact it. I oftentimes will recommend to individuals, you may have to, my practice has been, I would space the medications out. I won't take them all at one time, and so then that way it's hitting your body at maximal dosing at different points of the day. And there may be different reasons for you to be on these medications, i.e. that have blood pressure lowering effects. Now the reason, once again, briefly, as to why we use different strategies is you're targeting the system at multiple fronts. You're thinking of it just like a military attack. You're trying to target to bring this blood pressure down through different physiologic mechanisms. And that's what the docs are trying to use, or the pharmaceutical companies, they will institute. What I was trying to explain to you folks earlier is that the foods that we eat also work through similar mechanisms of action. That when we talk about the lignans from your seeds, from your chia seeds and flax and walnuts, that they actually work through what we call ACE inhibitors. They inhibit the ACE that lead to constriction. That when we talk about these foods also have a beneficial effect, the legumes, in terms of calcium channel. That means there are calcium channel blockers that are there. There's some studies that have shown that it actually lowers the heart rate too as well. That there is a unique mechanism that's a continuum. Now for you to go and extrapolate that out and say, no, I'm just gonna take my vitamin X, Y, and Z, I'm not saying it's good or bad, but what I'm saying is, it's not as good as what God made in packaging it together. And that it works together in unison to lower that blood pressure at times. And hopefully that answers that question.
So one question I would have of the panel talk about some people are doing very well. Their BMI's down, they work out, like Brother Bell was saying, he's riding his bike, he's doing all the right things, but for some reason they can't get their cholesterol down or they can't get their blood pressure down. What are your comments to them about the people who really are cranking it out, eating whole foods? And just real quick, Eric Wallace has got the best example of what real food is. Anybody know what it is? He said this about 10 years ago at a camp meeting. If it spoils in your house, it's real. Cheetos don't spoil. So anyway, what do you do about the guy who's doing it for the most part right? BMI's down, everything's good, but just can't seem to get it right.
Also, yeah, I was going to piggyback on that. It was Food-Like Substances. It's from the same book as Michael Pollard, who gave the advice you gave, and he said basically the reason some of the foods don't spoil is because not even the bacteria, the fungus, want to eat them, right? So you want to eat food that they want to eat, and so you want to eat food that actually spoils.
So your answer is, you want me to take it?
Yeah, you take it.
So it's complicated, to say the least. So you can do everything right and still not get the outcomes that you want. That's why even the pharmaceutical companies put that scroll in tiny, tiny print across, these results may not be applicable to everyone. Yeah. And so when we see that's there, it goes back to the earlier question. Are there other changes? So I can tell you, I'm not perfect. I try every day to be as perfect as I can with my diet, but I'm not. I'm not perfect with my sleep. I'm not perfect with my exercise. I'm certainly not perfect with my stress management at times. This little ring here, it measures something called heart rate variability that tells me when I'm stressed, and I know. I don't even need to tell me that.
That's your wedding ring or the other one?
No. You trying to get me in trouble?
Eric's the devil.
No, this is my move ring. It gets me back to a good place. What are you talking about?
Y'all know I love the net, so y'all know I love the net.
No, but no, the truth is that you have to constantly move towards the goal and keep your eye on Christ, right? So when we start this journey, it's about, I believe, so not even to self-promote in terms of the book. When I wrote the book about selfish and being selfish, about spirituality in terms of first, that's really a reflection. What is our purpose? What's our meaning? Who is our light? Who am I supposed to keep my eyes on first? Now, that's one aspect of it. The next aspect are all the other components of, have I forgiven myself?
Come on now.
Have I forgiven myself or others? Or am I holding on to stuff that I'm building this stress? I'm having people take up rent in my house, in my head. Eric said Trump. It could be anyone. That you hold on to something they have no idea what's going on. And so when you start building all of this continually, that's inside of you and these stressors that are there on a consistent basis, the pastor spoke about it today. Fitness, family, finance, family are relationships that are at odds with one another, that now we have this, and then many of us, we're the healthiest possible, but we are angry and we walk around looking angry. We don't laugh, we don't smile, we don't do anything of that sort. And we're joyless. And we're wondering why people aren't wanting to be like us. We have to look at the whole package, and even then, we may still, it's a blessing we live in this day and age. I'm gonna say it, you can vilify me. It's a blessing we live in a day and age in which we have the capacity to put stents in, to do surgery, to give medications to lower the risk if it's needed once we exhaust everything else that's there.
Children are my passion, and we've talked a lot about, for us adults, and we are going to be leading that example. Can anyone touch on adolescent impact? Speaking both, of course, to health disparities, but also I love the environmental and food part. I'm part of an initiative at a STEM school where we're trying to bring healthy eating directly into an outdoor school classroom.
So I'll jump in and just say, I do talks like this a lot of times around school performance and lifestyle. So, I've had churches bring me in to do dinner with a doc, and I talk about this. PS 144, if those of you from New York know, that's public school 144 in Queens. They actually switched to a completely vegetarian cafeteria and promoted it with their parents, and they watched test scores shoot into the top. They were like the top 10 or top number 11 schools in the state of New York. And this was a school full of English as second language learners. So it was not one that you would have suspected that would happen. Changing their diet actually made that big of a difference. Young people today really are in a tough situation. Sister White tells us that in these last days, it will be the most difficult time ever to be a young person. So our young people are dealing with stress levels. Social media has been one of the devil's greatest tools to really confuse and inflict pain on young people. As many of you know, I have a cousin, 13-year-old, who committed suicide. And it was one of the most difficult things my family's gone through, and it was around social media bullying and some other things that happened. So young people are living in a tough time, and they're accelerating aging. When you look at it not just from the outside, you can see girls develop faster, and you see kids look like they're aging faster. But on the inside, on a cellular level, they're aging faster as well. It is more important today that young people have these healthy options, because they are also, and Columbus and I used to talk about this a lot on Slave Food, how much they're targeted in marketing. And in a black neighborhood, what they do is they actually will, black and brown neighborhoods, poor neighborhoods, they will actually promote the toys and the Happy Meals more than they will in other neighborhoods. They will do things to draw people in. They spend lots of money targeting our kids, and black children see more fast food advertising than any other children in the country, for a lot of reasons. One of them is the billboards are in our neighborhood. I've lived in nice neighborhoods. I've never seen a McDonald's billboard. You go into a poor neighborhood, you see McDonald's will have a billboard. So our kids they're being basically under attack from all of these different things. As an educator, advocating the school for the best possible nutritional options in the school is one of the best things you can do. And what they found in some of these schools is that the kids will eat it. The second thing is making sure that the school has proper PE. A lot of schools have defunded or stopped doing PE because they want to train kids to take tests better. But taking away PE actually hurts test scores. So you want to make sure that they're doing that. The third thing is we talked a lot about social determinants of health. And that you can play into by making sure that the school has some system to actually be in check. So, and in medicine now, when you see a patient, you get points towards billing if you check off social determinants of health with a lot of the insurers. Schools should be doing the same thing. They should be looking at what is the condition that this child is coming to school with and what resources can we offer to help that child. A lot of schools don't have a lot of resources, but at least there's a way for you to look into it and try and make amends for it. So all of those things are really necessary if you're going to actually have healthier kids who perform better in school, because it becomes like a flywheel. They don't do well in school. That social determinant now means that they're going to be less healthy later on. And it's not just this kind of health. It's mental health and homicides. So the studies show that if you live in a neighborhood where less than 20% of the people have a high school diploma, the homicide rate is a lot higher. We complain about the crime in our inner cities. It actually has everything to do with the health of the people in those cities and the educational outcomes of the people in those cities. All of the different things are connected. You can't just send in, the National Guard into the city and think you're going to solve the problem. We got to go to root causes, which is what social determinants is about. It's about going upstream and solving the problem in a way that actually takes it away from its root.
One thing I'd add to that as a practical example, if you think that's accidental, it's not. I have a sibling who's in advertising, and one of her roles in her advertising job was to market McDonald's to urban areas. And very specifically, she was supposed to use her cultural lens to make the food that McDonald's was marketing more appealing to the psyche of brown people. And so there were several other people, less melanated people, who had made attempts prior to her and was told it was not good. They gave it to her. She did a fabulous job, and she had that particular account for a prolonged period of time. What she said to me was that I will never eat McDonald's food. She was vegan. But I have noticed that they find my perspective valuable. That's social engineering, all right? She's very young. This was her first job, her first opportunity. But since that time, she's never done anything like that again. But she did take note of it, and she shared it with the family. That is very intentional. Go ahead, Dr. Fennis.
Just to wrap this up, and I wanted to maybe put out a challenge to our health ministries department. I have enjoyed these types of programs. Dr. Batiste knows that I've gone to, many of them to, support this type of thing. But one of the things that seems to happen is that we have this great program and then we just fall off and there's nothing until the program happens again. So my challenge to maybe our health ministries department, how do we then take this information and continue to give it to our local community, our local churches, and also our communities? What sort of ideas and things that we can do to be able to continue these conversations so that they don't just resonate for us today and we go, oh, that's wonderful, and then we go home and reach for more than an ounce of cashews.
So she's very right, and I'll take the heat for that since I'm the health ministries director. But I will say we had 2 men's groups earlier. I guess this is a new school year, so it had been last summer. We talked about prostate cancer. We had hypertension. Batiste was there, Dr. Eaton, Dr. Seard. We had somebody else. It was like 4 or 5 people. We had maybe 8 people from Kansas and about 20 from Rubidoux. The second time we did it, we had 12 people total. So it's not like we don't have programs, but unfortunately, people just don't come. So that's why I don't do too many of them anymore. But we'll work on that, and I'm going to let Pastor Brooks and Danette kind of close things up.
So Healthy Heart Nation has recognized that, and we understand that it's important to be consistent. So even as we mentioned, as we do the blood pressure measurements, we were at San Bernardino Community, we're at 16th, we're at Rubidoux, we're here at Kansas, we're at a lot of the Seventh-day Adventist churches. But what we've also done is we've created what we call the checkup. And what that is every 3rd Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, we create a 30-minute window where people can call in and get information about their blood pressure, as well as to almost have an ask the doc kind of situation. So that has been something that Kansas Avenue has been supporting from the start. It's part of your weekly newsletter. So if you want to get some information around that, every 3rd Thursday at 5 p.m., there will be experts like this joining that line where you can ask those questions, get reinforcement of those ideas. What we are also doing is our HELP conference, and this is a health, equity, and lifestyle. It's happening October 10 through 12. This is actually happening in Florida. It's happening in West Palm Beach, Florida, and it's going to have some of the best, speakers in all kinds of areas to not only talk about the issues, but to come together to build solutions so that they can be sustainable and they can be practiced in our communities. So, we're very grateful for the support we receive. We need continued support with your time, your talents, your money. All of those things allow us to bring this programming to people and communities that need it the most. I'm going to let you.
No, I think who all attended the lunch in after church? How many of you enjoyed the lunch in? Amen. A way in which we can have healthful foods that actually is flavorful and tastes good, right? It's possible. Why can't this be the norm instead of the exception? Why can't we spread this around? I think this is a way in which that ministry takes on a different life. It becomes alive. And now we don't have to actually talk about it, we can be about it in those moments. So look forward to continual collaboration. Appreciate the pastoral staff for having us and for supporting this, because they are behind this fully. They want you all to be healthy, and they want the community to be healthy. And so we thank you. Appreciate you.
Amen. Praise the Lord. Put your hands together for our health ministries, as well as our Healthy Heart Nation. And as they've said, we have made a commitment from the pastoral staff that we want to keep this going, but it can't keep going and it go in one ear and out the other. We need the commitment from you all when these things come up, and even suggestions as to how we can continue to do things. Everybody loves a good fellowship meal, And I've joked about it, but we see all of the fatty and thick and salty food first, and that salad is all the way at the end of the line, right next to the juice. We have to change our thinking even as we feed each other and we're eating on Sabbath afternoons together. Small shifts will make us all get healthier over time. And as a pastoral staff, we are in big support of this, especially because of the last year that we've had. Amen, somebody. We need to take these things seriously. Thankful again to our panel. Appreciate y'all greatly. Let me see real fast. I just want to say, Pastor Woods, Oakwood, wanted to be at Oakwood. Amen. Let's. You went to Oakwood? I don't remember because we weren't there at the same time. I was there with all of y'all. Yeah, we were all together. All right, sorry. Appreciate it. Sorry about that, Ken. Sorry. I go, Ken, because he's New York. Amen. But with that, send your kids to Oakwood. Amen. Can we stand to close prayer and send y'all on your way? With that, on next Sabbath, amen, our pastoral staff will be continuing our series on Back to Basics, teaching on love, another aspect of love. I believe it's love for enemy. Next Sabbath afternoon, you are invited to join us here at 5 p.m. Bring an offering. We will have Jehovah Shalom a cappella, internationally known a cappella group. I believe they're Ghanaian. Y'all know where they're from? Where they? Are they Ghanaian? But either way, they're African, yes, but I'm trying to watch country. It's the continent. Anyway, everyone is invited to be here it's free to come in, amen, but it ain't free to leave. All right. Let's pray. Father, we thank you for the opportunity to be here this afternoon. We thank you for the information. We thank you for the questions. We thank you for those who watched online. And now, God, it is our intention to continue working toward seeing our thoughts change by your Spirit. So renew us with every day, God, that we would make healthy choices, that we would make good decisions going forward to increase our capacity for health. God, that we would be able to be a bulwark, a standard against the ways of Babylon, continually trying to come inside the church as it relates to our health. So God, help us in this regard. I'm praying that you would keep each person here, be with each family as we separate from one another. God, never let us separate from your presence is our desire today. In Jesus' name, amen.
I wish it was next Sunday because I want to be at the whole thing. Yeah. Yeah, okay. Okay. Oh, I just walked